The shadows where the mulips dwell are dark and wet as ink, and slow and softly rings their bell, as in the slime you sink. Beyond the Murloc mountains, a long and lonely road, through the spider shadows and the marsh of toad, and through the wood of hanging trees and gallows weed, you go to find the mulips, and the mulips feed. We're not doing the mulips this week, we're doing the Morlocks. Hit the music!
Welcome to abombtozzzax. With me, Colin Holt. And my friends Dan Snellgrove and Jamie Firth. Here they come!
That was a little poem by J.R. Tolkien. Have you ever heard that one before?
I don't recognise the poem, no.
You don't recognise it? I think it's a poem the hobbits say to each other to scare their children or something. I don't think the mulips are actually characters. We're not talking about mulips, we're talking about the Morlocks. But that poem I read as a little boy when my mum would go shopping up Mapley Top, and would leave me in the library while she did her shopping. There, my literary artistic beginnings really began because I read loads of poems. Did you read poems as kids, guys?
Only like Roald Dahl and Lewis Carroll and anything
Beastly. Yeah. I had this book called The Magic Tree. I bought it again recently. It's wonderful. I'd recommend anyone to read it. But The Mulips was a poem by J.R. Tolkien. Always freaked me out. And for some reason, the Morlocks always make me think of the Mulips. So I thought I'd start with that little poem. This week, well, we haven't said hello. Welcome to abombtozzzax, my favourite Marvel character, where we go through every character in the Marvel Comics universe, talk about them for a bit, and then rank them. Who's the best? Who's the worst? This week, we are looking at the Morlocks. The Morlocks, inspired by, we are still going through the A to Z. The character this week is Annalee. So I thought, let's do Annalee and the Morlocks. The Morlocks are named after the hideous underground dwellers of H.G. Wells' novel The Time Machine, a group of mutants who live under the streets of New York in an alley they call the Alley. Brought together by leader Callisto, they are the lost, lonely and unloved of society, and boy do they like kidnapping the pretties. That's basically all they seem to do. Joining me today are a hulking ragtag man form who goes by the name of Nick Crick.
Hello. It's hard to follow an introduction like that.
That was a line. That was a line describing Caliban that I wrote down. A hulking ragtag man form. He's not, of course. I'm looking at him now, and he's absolutely gorgeous. But perhaps even more gorgeous, like an angel strapped to bondage gear in a sewer. It's the beautiful Jamie Firth. Hello, Jamie Firth.
Hello. How are you?
How delightful to see you. What have you been up to, boys? Anything fun?
Clearly the usual, mostly working on just sitting here thinking of puns.
Okay.
I did hear, I like that you mentioned J.R. Tolkien in the intro, because I suddenly hit on the idea the other day that his first name was Jive. And that's been amusing me ever since.
Jive Tolkien.
Jive Tolkien.
What was the RR?
Well, I had to admit the R because it wouldn't work for the Jive Tolkien pun.
Jive Tolkien. Oh, I only just got that.
There we go. It's still not clear enough.
This is why I'm still workshopping
Jive.
This is why I'm still working on it. But if you had to give him, I'd suggest Rowdy Roddy.
Rowdy Roddy is fine.
Jive Rowdy Roddy Tolkien. And his wonderful imagination. Yes. So every week we go through these comic books. As I say, I curate a series of comics that relate to the characters. We're picking 4 specific Morlocks. First of all, Annalee, as I said, and then the probably most famous and important Morlocks of them all, Callisto, Caliban, and Masque. When I say important, I mean important to middle-aged men who enjoyed comics in the 1980s. Nick is, like me, a comics fan, particularly an X-Men fan. Am I right, Nick?
Absolutely correct.
Number one.
Yeah.
Big fan of the Morlocks, generally.
I don't know. Until you'd picked them out, I hadn't really thought about them that much. I must admit, they sort of, they're characters that they don't really seem to know what to do with a lot of the time.
Yes, and I think that's a shame. I've been looking through a few of them, and I've got some thoughts on that, because I feel like, yes, they should be really good, and there's more fun things you could do, but they don't. They just have them kidnap children repeatedly, which is really creepy, and I don't like it. Jamie, had you ever heard of the Morlocks?
I have not. The only one I was aware of really was Caliban, having seen the recent Logan version of him, and then working backwards from that.
Stephen Merchant, he's great. That does a very good job with him, I think, but doesn't talk in that weird Caliban doesn't like it way. He just does him as a Bristolian, I think.
Very much in his wheelhouse.
Very much in his wheelhouse. I thought that was excellent casting, and I thought he did a brilliant job. Well done, Stephen Merchant, on your Caliban. If I could see your Caliban now. Are you a fan of The Tempest, the play?
Yes.
Do you know that one? Yes. So, of course, that's where Caliban comes from. We'll get to that. I've written up some stuff. Anyway, I'm going to give you a potted history of the Morlocks first, and then we'll really get into these guys and really pick out the very thin amount of story we have to go on, really. So, the Morlocks were created by Chris Claremont and Paul Smith in Uncanny X-Men 169 in 1983. Homeless, hated, and or hunted, they tend to be the mutants with deformed appearances or incredibly destructive and unhelpful powers, or sometimes just really weird. Unlike the universally gorgeous X-Men, aside from the ones with too much hair, red eyes, or blue skin, these mutants cannot pass for normal humans and have been kicked out by or ran away from their families. Did you like that aspect, boys? I like that there's they're creepy, they're grotesque, because normally, you have the whole mutants, the mutants going to take over, and they're these terrifying aliens living amongst us of a sort. Not aliens, but, next evolutionary leap. But they normally just look like really hunky men or well-fit birds, to use a terrible phrase. But the Morlocks have like 3 eyes and stuff like that. I like that.
Yeah, I like the idea that they're the people that can't hide the fact they're mutants.
So they have to live in a sewer.
They have to literally hide because they can't disguise it in everyday life.
Yeah. They're freaks, and they have to dress like Dickensian characters, of course, because they live in sewers, and that's what you have to do if you live in a sewer or thieve in any way. The X-Men first encounter them when Caliban attempts to kidnap young Kitty Pryde. Later, Callisto gets in on the act by kidnapping the gorgeous millionaire playboy Warren Kenneth Worthington III, aka the Angel. In fact, reading these with a modern eye, a lot of the Morlock stories have an uncomfortable suggestion that ugly/homeless people just want to kidnap and marry pretty people out of spite, desire, or jealousy. I guess it goes back to a sort of Dickensian Artful Dodger story. I generally dislike stories involving sewers, teenage thieves, and alligators, of which these stories have plenty. That's a lie. I love stories with alligators. I don't know why I put that. Have you seen the film Alligator?
Yes.
Do you remember growing up and just the idea of alligators in the sewers was just fact?
Yeah. Is it not fact?
I don't know, is it? I think it's an urban myth.
That's an interesting one. I'm not sure. I think it's probably based in truth, like most of these urban myths. So there probably were alligators found in the sewer, but not like fully grown, mutated, the ooze, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle style things that came later.
Yeah, I assume that's untrue. But I don't know about you lads, but I definitely grew up, with my family in Nottingham. I grew up with the idea ghosts are real, Hell wasn't particularly talked about, to be fair. You know, we weren't that kind, but ghosts were definitely all around us. Reincarnation was real, and allocators definitely lived in the sewers. And these were just like, just common sense. Of course they do. Of course they live in the sewers. Anyway, Jamie, you keep going on mute, by the way. Do you mean to?
I do, yes. I'm trying to, I've got various burps and things going on that need to be edited out manually.
Are you constantly farting throughout?
Yes, yes.
I wonder why you keep going on mute. Okay, fine. Fair enough. When the X-Men try to save Warren's privileged, pampered angel ass, Storm ends up fighting Callisto to the death with flick knives. The whole thing is very 1980s classic movie Warriors. Storm wins despite not being able to access her powers because she is frankly badass whatever she does. Even when she's growing her beloved plants in the attic, she probably does it in a badass kind of way. So Storm technically becomes leader of the Morlocks for a bit. I think they try to get the Morlocks to live in the mansion, but they refuse. But I get the feeling they don't try that hard, as clearly the Morlocks will be very stinky, mad, and generally quite weird house guests. Reminds me a bit, once my family went away and it's becoming very autobiographical, this story. I do feel a connection to the Morlocks. Not in terms of kidnapping pretties, but in terms of, just feeling shunned and unwanted. But it does remind me when we went on a holiday and came back, my oldest brother had quite sweetly brought loads of homeless people back to live in the house. We just walked in, they were all just asleep in the front room, like after a big sesh, all just hanging out there. I think they were just his friends as well. My family would definitely fit in with the Morlocks, is what I'm saying. Anyway, my particular favourite Morlocks are Tar Baby, who sticks to stuff, Ape, who can turn his body into anything, but mostly just like giant see-through jam jars, and of course Leech, a sweet, sad lizardy boy who subdues your powers when you near him, so everyone hates him. Poor Leech. Storm's frankly careless leadership of this vulnerable community leads to the most appalling massacre of mutants ever, or as it's known as, the Mutant Massacre. A crossover between the X-Books, Thor and Power Pack sees Mr. Sinister's Marauders invade the alley and mercilessly butcher as many Morlocks as they can, just for kicks, in the process wounding Angel, who loses his wings. The Morlocks never really recover, and years later the Morlock children return as Gene Nation. Is that a pun? Gene Nation. I don't really get that. Anyway, they come back apparently and kill innocent humans in revenge, but I haven't read them because I can't imagine they're not shit, to be honest. Those stories, they sound dreadful. Eventually, when Professor X begins his big Krakoa experiment, which we've read about in other episodes, he finally does what he probably should have done before and gives them actual sanctuary and a home, but for some reason on a golf course. So that's the Morlocks in a nutshell. Does that all make sense to you boys?
So I feel bad after all of that, just wanting to know a golf course. Can you elaborate on that?
Did you read the X-Men, the modern X-Men with Callisto that I sent?
I believe so.
Yeah, where it ends with Masque. He's like an old man on a golf course.
Oh, right, yes.
I think he's sort of given them a retirement village kind of thing, which I think there's a lot in here to do with, if we were going to get deep, we've only got like 30 minutes left, but I think there's a lot we could talk about in terms of attitudes towards the homeless, perception of them. Do you know what I mean? And who are these people? Why have they all come together? All right, let's see if we can get into this. So first of all, Annalee. Let's start with her. She was created by Louise Simonson and June Brigman in Power Pack 12, 1985. She is 5'2" and 74 kilograms. Sounds reasonable. Blue eyes and grey hair. So first of all, I discovered Annalee was the name of a doll from the 50s, because this is quite a random name to call someone, like a kind of Tiny Tears, those kind of things. She does sort of look like a doll, but also a weird grandma. She looks a bit like Nora Batty from Last of the Summer Wine, but she doesn't have her sheer super strength.
She does. Her super strength appears to be she has rollers. Like you see very few superheroes with rollers in their hair.
All the Morlocks wear, yeah. I mean, she's not really a superhero. She's a super homeless woman. I don't know what she wears. She wears a sort of apron and rollers, yeah. And what they called the thing over your head that old women used to wear in the 80s.
like a sort of headscarf. Is that the word for it?
It's just a headscarf and big round glasses.
Mm.
Her power, I think, is that when she gets miserable, everyone else does, which again really reminds me of my mum. So,
I was going to say it was sort of like a Coronation Street character. It's
he does look like a Coronation Street character. You're right.
Sort of northwest feel to it. You know, it is Nora Batty. It's is it Bet Lynch? Not Bet Lynch. She was the glamorous one, wasn't she? But there was like a bunch of Minnie Caldwell.
Yeah, the original
old
1950s
women who sat in a pub.
Was it 1950s Coronation Street came out?
Yeah, 50s and 60s, I think. But yeah, they'd sit in the pub and just be curmudgeonly, and that's what she comes across as.
Chuffing on a fag. Yeah, she sort of looks like one of those, doesn't she?
Knows how to cook a hot pot.
Knows how to cook a hot pot. Yeah. But I think the Morlocks generally. So to explain this story, the Power Pack, who you may remember, are 4 kids with powers, all called something Power: Julie Power, Pete Power, Percy Power. I don't know. They all get kidnapped in the night by these guys called the Drain Dwellers, who are like even below the Morlocks. So they're like a lower caste of Morlocks, I think. And they're the Morlocks who are so freaky, even the Morlocks don't want to hang out with them. And I think it's real nightmare stuff when they get kidnapped. There's Ape is he turns into a jam jar, as I say. So he's a guy who most of the Morlocks talk in this third person like they're toddlers, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of, they all either talk in third person, and Nick doesn't like that, and or they do the running the name together. Like it would be like if I called you both Colin Holt and Jamie Firth all the time.
Yeah, Jamie Firth doesn't want to eat sandwiches, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah,
Jamie Firth always wants to eat sandwiches.
Yeah, I know.
Poor example, but
terrible improvisation there. Forgive me. But I do think it's like the stuff of Nightmare. And there's one called Beautiful Dreamer, which I liked, because she's like, you can't see her face, but she's sort of like a flapper girl.
Yeah,
you know, 1920s, but everything's disheveled and ruined and stuff.
Sort of a faded old flapper girl.
Yeah, and what about the Piper?
Yeah, let's talk about the Piper.
He's creepy. He's got a beard but no moustache. That's never right. And he plays his Piper that can summon alligators and bats
from the sewers, presumably.
So evolution has somehow given him the power to summon only creatures that live in the sewers.
The bats live in sewers? I wasn't sure about that.
Oh no, maybe they don't.
Caves, which are largely sewer adjacent, I would say.
Yeah.
I also think Leech looks great in this one, particularly the design of him. Later on, they make him more like a cute, like Cabbage Patch Kid, but in this, he's wearing sort of like a nightie, again, that's all disheveled, and he just looks so sad, and he's got this huge head. It's great. I like weirdly, I don't normally like Power Pack, but I think this is the best Morlock stuff because it's so creepy. But basically, Annalee's essentially what's happened is her children have died. It's really brutal stuff. And I'd like to remind you, Power Pack, I think, was created as a one for the little kids. Do you know what I mean? One for junior readers. The main character, all her children have been murdered. Not the main character, sorry, the main villain. So she kidnaps Power Pack to become her children. Weird.
Yeah.
Very weird. She does it twice. She does it in Power Pack, and then they sort of say to her, "Look, this isn't right. You can't do this." And she's like, "All right," and then literally ends with her looking at the window, going, "I'll be back next time." And then she just does it again. The next comic, which is an X-Men comic written by Chris Claremont, she basically does the same thing. She just kidnaps them again, but this time she gets Masque, who's Masque spelt with a Q. Masque's power is to he can change anyone's face and body except his own, so he always looks hideous, you know, which is what a curse. So he gives them all this sort of weird face, like a generic face where they've got a long upper lip, and they just look really kind of weird and creepy. And then beautiful Jima wipes their memory, so they're all stuck as her children. They think they are her children, but luckily the X-Men turn up and rescue them.
Sorry, there's someone at my door. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Okay, fine.
If it's an alligator, just say no. None of that
Yes.
business.
Well, I'd say pause the recording, but we don't have much time. What did you think of all this, Jamie? Do you have any thoughts on Annalee?
Well, I'm worried Nick might be being kidnapped as we speak. She's outside in her rollers.
Come, little pretty boy.
Yeah, I mean, in general with the Morlocks, I thought, particularly starting with Annalee, it's like there's this lovely thing about, I like that the Drain Dwellers have like really weak powers, but they actually sort of combine to make something kind of to become actually quite powerful as a group. Which is a sort of running theme, I guess, through all of the comics of teamwork and, dreams and working together and being stronger as a unit than we are as individuals, because everybody has their own skills that they bring to the party. I've gone in deep here, but
they're all. Jamie was just saying how the Morlocks, even though they've all got crap powers, they kind of combine them to work well together.
Yeah, actually, which I guess is like a forerunner of the stuff they do during the Krakoan age, that sort of mutant circuit.
Yes. Did you like the bit where Ape turned into Pac-Man? That was bizarre. You need to turn into Pac-Man and just swallow the kids. Okay.
Yeah, peak 80s that.
So in the end, we find out. So Callisto comes in. She's the boss, and she basically just tells them off. What are you doing? You can't be doing this. Turn their faces back to normal. Stop them thinking they're your kids. Take this bed back for a start. I quite like the organisational skills she's using there. I felt very looked after by Callisto in that moment, but a little bit pot calling the kettle black, considering she'd spent previous episodes kidnapping Angel, then Kitty Pryde. So, but she's learned her lesson, I guess, by this point. I like it when she says to Annalee, I don't want to face you in the ring. Defy me again, and I will. The ring is, so the Morlocks, the way they do their justice is in their little community, underground homeless community of mutants, is they set up a kind of arena, and just if they've got a problem, they fight to the death. And Callisto, who's very good at fighting and has a lot of knives, says, I'll basically take you in the ring, old woman, and kill you. And they say but you'll just kill, they say, but you'll just kill her. She can't fight back. And Annalee's like, that's what I want. Please just take me in the ring and kill me. It's really sad. Yeah. I found it really sad.
Yeah, she's a very tragic character, really.
Very tragic. Yeah. But eventually Katie convinces her it's okay, and she agrees to adopt Leech instead, which at one point she says, not want Leech. He's ugly.
Yeah, they make a big deal. They're pretty nasty about that as well. Power Pack as well, saying one of them says, oh, poor Leech, and the other one says, well, even if it is true. I don't know if that's Windy Blast or Bigly Feet that says that. I can't remember the Power Pack's names.
Oh yeah, they say even if he is Windy Blast and Bigly Feet. That's good.
Yeah,
that's more in keeping with the idea, as opposed to
that's the Tolkien version, I think.
Bigly Feet. So that's Annalee's story, really. And I quite like the bit where she says to Katie Power, she says something like, you remind me of my daughter, but her power. Oh, yeah, the youngest one's power was to make everybody feel better. Her daughter who got killed. All very sad, but very weird. And then eventually in the mutant massacre, when the Marauders go into the tunnels, she's just killed. I'm afraid the next time you see Annalee, she's just lying there, properly blown away. Again, in an issue of Power Pack, which is really quite horrible. There's no sense of like, oh no, she'll be all right, or that good people survive. Do you know what I mean? You survive, or that you can beat the baddies. It's like, no, they will just come and kill you. If you're homeless, you're probably going to get killed, which is very probably, him trying to do a bit of social realism.
For the kids.
Is that for real? Is that one for realsies this time? Because like normally when someone dies, you just kind of, well, they'll be back in the following. Does she come back?
She's never come back. I think she's been forgotten about, basically, I'm afraid. Annalee. So R.I.P. Annalee.
Quite a big deal. Quite a big deal to be permanently offed and not brought back.
Yeah. I don't think they bothered bringing her back. And they've got a healer as well. He's
So
even
could have
called
done,
healing.
but just no.
Well, I think he can't heal you when you're dead, I think. But did you read that one? It was Power Pack 27. That was a bonus one with Sabretooth going around just ripping people up. But you just see her. There's just one panel where she's just literally gutted. It's so grim, and it's for 7-year-olds. It's so grim. Okay, so that's Annalee. R.I.P. Annalee. Callisto, 5'9", 58 kilograms. Her powers, I'm not sure what they are. It just seems to be generally fighting, good at fighting. Right, so this is my problem, right? They always go on about Callisto being hideous and talk about how hideous she is. But I don't think she is, apart from the fact she's got an eye patch.
Yeah.
Sort of hair a bit like Thingy from the Pretenders. And possibly sometimes drawn with a slightly horsey face. But I'm not sure that's hideous, is it?
Yeah, I had the same thing. I was like, my note was like, she's just got a long face and a scar. It's not really hideous.
Sometimes they forget the scar.
Yeah.
But she apparently ran away from home after she had her eye stabbed out, right? I don't know who by, but she had it stabbed out because she was a mutant. But then I'm like, her power is just being good at fighting. So how would they, do you know what I mean? If she had Leech face or, looked like Tar Baby or something, then fair enough. But she's just good at fighting. I feel like there's a missing cog in the Callisto story is what I'm trying to say here. Anyway, she set up the alley with Caliban, Masque, and Sunder, who's just a big bald bloke. I think that's literally all he is, a big bald bloke. Good on him. Looks a bit like who's the guy from American Werewolf in London in the pub?
Brian Glover.
Brian Glover. That's who I imagine Sunder played by. Right, lads, come on. So she founded the alley. She is the leader. She set this whole thing up. And she sent Caliban out to find more people. So then she steals Angel, fights Storm, loses, and then helps Caliban to try and marry Kitty and loses. At some point later on, Masque makes her beautiful. So she gets with Colossus, who at the time has been reborn as a depowered American artist. Whatever. Eventually, she becomes the right-hand woman to the White Queen. And suddenly, that's the only comic I think I really enjoy with her in. I think she got quite a KD Lang vibe, and also occasionally a bit Adam Driver. That's my thoughts on Callisto. What did you guys think of Callisto? Any thoughts on her?
I mean, I'm a sucker for an eye patch. It's like a pirate, isn't it? It's like, that's how you make someone grotesque. How do you know they're evil? They're wearing an eye patch.
Yes.
It's quite a vaudevillian kind of old-fashioned way of pointing it out.
Yeah, eye patch for the ladies, goatee for the men.
Yeah. Both for pirates, actually.
But yeah, both. Yeah.
To be fair.
Eye patch for the ladies, goatee for the men. Or both. Fuck.
Or both.
So she fights Storm. That's a great bit. I mean, that's a classic Storm moment. Storm has her powers taken away by Leech. Is that right?
She's been made ill by fever, I think.
Plague.
Plague. She's got fever from plague, is what I meant.
But she can't use her powers for some reason anyway, can she? She can't. Basically, they just have a knife fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Callisto goes into this knife fight just thinking, yeah, she's got no chance. And then Storm, well, first of all, Callisto throws her a knife and Storm just catches it midair. And then just a really nice sequence with no words where she wraps her cloak around her arm and then stabs her. Callisto's face, so shocked by this, stabs her through the heart as well.
Yeah, there's a great comment afterwards where someone says, "Oh, we've managed to heal her. She'll probably be all right. You didn't quite hit her heart. I'm sure you were aiming for that." And Storm's like, "No."
What, she wasn't aiming for the heart?
As in, that they were saying, "I'm sure you weren't intending to kill her." And Storm's like, "Wasn't paying attention either way. Don't mind."
Oh no, I was killing her.
Yeah.
She was dead. Yeah. Storm is so cool, isn't she? I think maybe we should do her in the new year. I think she might be the best Marvel character. I don't know, maybe we go too far if we do that. We go too far. Callisto, by the way, is the name of comes from Greek myth, one of Artemis's handmaidens, who was seduced by Zeus in the form of Artemis. All gets a bit kinky. Then when Artemis noticed she was pregnant, she turned her into a she-bear, and they hunted her. Don't know how that relates to Callisto in this at all, but Zeus took pity on her and turned her into the constellation Ursa Major. So that was all fine.
Is that the Great Bear? Great Bear? Great Bear.
The Great Bear. So Callisto, so she steals Angel, has this fight with Storm. Storm stabs her, but she doesn't die. And then she helps Caliban try to marry Kitty. That's all very uncomfortable, that story, isn't it? What is really uncomfortable is that the X-Men are then kind of like, well, Kitty says, I've got to stay because I promised I would. And they're kind of like, oh, okay, fair enough. Do you know what I mean? And then there's another story where they take her back to see Caliban. And they're like, it's good to look after your friends or whatever. It's like, no, this is a man who tried to marry a 14-year-old. He's not your friend. He's not.
Yeah.
Do you know
she
what I mean?
buys him a nice T-shirt, so that's fine.
She buys him a T-shirt with sushi written on it. I don't know what that means. What's that about? Okay, so what did you think about Callisto when she becomes right-hand woman to the White Queen? I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, much cooler. I like the section where I think is it Pyro comments that Storm and Callisto just seem to greet each other by flinging knives at each other's faces.
Yeah, that's fun. I mean, that's how we used to, wasn't it, Jamie? Do you remember?
We've all got friends like that, yeah.
Hey, buddy, how you doing? Yeah.
Hey, not bad. Just as soon as I get this knife out of my hair,
out of my cheek. That's probably how she lost her eye in the first place. It's all her fault. I think this whole thing is Callisto like making up for her own stupidity.
I knew I should have done business cards, but no, I had to go with throwing knives, didn't I?
Why did I think that was a good thing? And why do I keep doing it? I like Jumbo Carnation. He is a mutant fashion designer with 4 arms. And he designs all the clothes for the mutants. So much fun. And he designs her an outfit, a cool white jacket, which she cuts the sleeves off so she looks a bit more Chrissy Hyde. Is that the person from the Pretenders? Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah, I like Jumbo. He's sort of gloriously camp in a fun way.
Yeah, and he's a bald man.
There's a lot about.
He's got an inflated feel to him. He sort of looks like he could float. Do you know what I mean? He sort of looks like he's full of air. I love him, Jumbo Carnation. Right, so on to Caliban. He was created by Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum. He actually appeared in Uncanny X-Men 148 in 1981. He has the ability to locate mutants. He is named after the Tempest character. The Tempest character is, to be fair, maybe this is why they've got the whole kidnapping Kitty Pryde thing, because Caliban lives on in the Shakespeare play. He lives on an island that Prospero turns up on. Caliban is a sort of beast man, and he tries to steal his daughter Miranda for nefarious purposes. So I guess that's where they've got the idea from. You know, it's not just Chris Claremont being a bit creepy. I hope
he's the son of a witch as well, so he's got like magical powers.
Yes, I studied it for A-level, and my favourite line is this one: a born devil on whose nurture would not stick. It's good.
It's on my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, that's how I introduce myself. He does talk in an annoying way, like he's just learnt language, unlike in Tempest, where he's actually very eloquent, isn't he? Surprisingly eloquent. When he first appears with like a hat on and a sort of Phantom of the Opera outfit, coming out the sewers, tries to grab. Again, he wants pretty things, so he tries to get. Again, it's all uncomfortable, isn't it? Because Kitty's 14. But when they see his face, he looks like a bald, skinny, pale peeper, which I like his look. He's sort of skinny and like, no, don't hurt me, you know.
Looks a bit like the Chameleon.
He does look a bit like Chameleon. And he does look like Stephen Merchant. I think it is because of the eyes, isn't it? Did you ever see Stephen Merchant's stand-up where he explains about when he goes on a date with someone and then he just shows you what happens when he takes his glasses off, and it just makes his eyes look so huge. His eyes just like bulge out immediately. It's very funny. But yeah, but I think they basically cast him because he literally looks a bit like Caliban. and he did a bloody good job, as I say. But yeah, I don't like the way with the Caliban kitty thing, all very creepy. So he tries to kidnap her to be his, but then he decides to marry her. They arrange a wedding. Callisto gets involved, very hypocritical of her, but he wants to marry Kitty, and who appears in this sort of ripped bridal. It's all weird, but then she says, "Oh, I don't." He realizes she doesn't actually want to marry him. What a surprise! No, what? And she's just going to remain his friend. But then I just feel like the rest of the X-Men encourage it all. Like when he gives him the T-shirt, the Nightcrawler says, "Oh, he'd love anything you gave him." I'm like, no, she should not. You cannot be taking her near this man.
Now, just for context, I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to be, because I was interested in that, because I often think, oh, that's ridiculous, and then think, is it ridiculous? And have to go away and have a look. And actually, perfectly legal in America. I thought, it was
to get married at 14.
Early 80s, but could be a different time. I'll go and have a look. So I went and had a look, and indeed it was legal. Yeah, California had no minimum age. New York was 14, and about like 20 states, I think it was legal for a 14-year-old to get married. However, that did change. Do you want to guess when that changed?
Was it because of this comic?
Yes, immediately. They were like,
so
this is wrong. It's called the Kitty Pride Clause, and they added it in.
84?
2017 in California. They introduced a no under 18s marriage. To be fair, like previously, you could marry with both parental consent and with court order, so they would actually like look at the cases. So I guess it was to like catch things like where like a 15-year-old was dying and they wanted to get married to their childhood sweetheart or something. I don't know why.
I mean, that happens all the time, doesn't it?
I was trying to think of edge cases, but most of them were evil.
It's just people like Jerry Lee Lewis, basically, wanting to marry.
It's Jerry Lee Lewis, who, I was going to say, not only married someone that was 14, but also his cousin.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, very recent, 2017. In fact,
that's mind-blowing stuff.
When Logan came out, which was one of the first R-rated Marvel movies, which means if you were under 17, you couldn't watch it. So at some point in early 2017, you could get married in California, but you weren't allowed to watch Logan.
Great research, Jamie.
I've not prepared any of that.
Shocking research.
That's just off the top of my head.
Wow. Wow. All right. So many questions. So 2017 was California. Which is a very progressive state, right? Like, and from what I understand, the Republicans, in a handmaiden sale type way, basically want to take this back.
New York followed suit in 2019. So,
what?
5 years ago.
Oh wow. Okay, so this story
and California and New York are pretty like they're not Republican zones, are they? I mean,
I'd still argue the X-Men shouldn't be encouraging it.
No,
or not. I don't think they're encouraging. How old is Caliban, do you think? I mean, maybe he's only 12 because he does talk, because we can't tell because he's a mutant.
Maybe.
I hope he's not 50 is all I'm saying. For so many reasons. Anyway, he sort of redeems himself somewhat, I think, during the massacre, the mutant massacre, when he's on hand to try and save Leech and Artie, who's another cute little kid, two runaway kids. He tries to hide them in a tunnel, but Sabretooth comes after them and badly wounds him. All the mutant. I don't think I put much mutant massacre stuff in the end. It's upsetting, isn't it? It's so brutal. And what's also the Marauders are these hideous killers, but they're also so disco and dandy. The guy Scalp Hunter wears a kind of like cat suit made out of guns that sort of shimmers. And then there is the guy called Harpoon who just throws harpoons, which I think must be the worst idea ever, surely. Anyway.
That's the last thing on the list in the brainstorming session, isn't it? And harpoon, throws a harpoon. Yeah, stick it on there.
What does he do though? What does he do?
That reminds me of when there was this sketch show. I can't remember which sketch show it was. One of those sort of sketch shows that got made about 10 years ago that everyone's forgotten. one of my friends got the chance to write loads of ideas to sketches. They asked him to send him some ideas for sketches, and he got really excited and sent like 200 sketches. But some of them was just like an egg. You know, like he hadn't really. I think only the first two were could be called sketches, and some of them were just like a man's got a hat. You know. Anyway, harpoon. So eventually, Apocalypse does an archangel on Caliban and makes him his new death. Yawn. He becomes big and strong. He joins X-Force. Not sure what happens to him later, but I hope he's okay. Sort of. I also think he's a massive creep. Finally, Masque or Masque, spelt like the Mask of the Red Death. He's 5'6" and 63 kilograms. He's a little dude. Not that little, though. I thought he was smaller than that. I thought he was like tiny, tiny. He works with Callisto and Caliban to set up the Morlocks. He was always the worm tongue to Callisto, or perhaps more like Starscream to Megatron. I like the dynamic. It's good. He begrudgingly follows Callisto, but is always after power himself. Like a body morphing tattoo artist, there's a lot of that sort of thing in Claremont in the 80s. He changes the Morlocks' looks and body shape, which apparently they ask for to look more hideous. I think that's quite interesting. That when you arrive and become a Morlock, Masque goes, "Do you want me to make you look really ugly?" And they're like, "Yeah, please."
I take that as a massive compliment. Thank you.
What?
Not me personally. Like if somebody said, "Now you're here, I need to make you hideous," it's like, oh, I thought I was doing well on that front myself already. But all right, what do we want? A few warts?
But yes, okay, fair enough. But they are obsessed with pretties. They're always going, pretties. I want pretties. So why don't they go make me really fit?
Yeah.
Partly because they're not Northern English people. He could not change his own face, though, and remained looking like a Quasimodo type in his lovely pink hoodie. After the massacre, Masque takes over the Morlocks and does even more extreme body mucking about, giving Jean Grey tentacles. Not cool, Masque. Eventually, I'm pretty sure he gets shot by Cable of X-Force, just to show that Cable is not messing around, all right? Masque must come back to life, because apparently there's a comic, again I haven't read it, but where he's running a mutant arena, and he can now change his own face, which he changes it to Marilyn Monroe's face, and from then on identifies as a woman. This sounds quite interesting, but comes from the dullest run of comics ever called Extreme X-Men. I couldn't force you to read those. Finally, he decides he is a grumpy old man after all, and ends up living on the golf course and just hangs around unhappily like a pre-2024 Trump. It's my final bit. Masque. I love that story where he gives Jean Grey tentacles. It's so weird and creepy. Did you read that one?
Yeah, he seems like a sort of he feels like a slightly different character in that one, in that he's all sort of long coats and silk scarves and calling people dear children, and he seems like a bit more like erudite and sort of slightly fancy in that one.
He is a bit, isn't it? But maybe this is him transforming slowly to a woman, to identify as a woman, which apparently what happens eventually. Gives himself Marilyn Monroe's face. I like that idea.
Is that not copyright? Are there not issues there? Is it actually her face? Do they refer to it as actually this is Marilyn Monroe's face, or is it?
Yeah, and I think they actually say it's Marilyn Monroe's face. But I don't know. Can you copyright a real person's face?
I don't know.
I
mean,
I can try.
Someone will have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I shall go and patent my face immediately.
There we go. Yeah.
Trademark.
Jamie. People are desperate to get their hands on it.
Mine's already taken by Dan Snellgrove, so
yes, that's true. He's got it hung on his wall. So there we go. That's all my thoughts on the Morlocks. I don't feel like I've got many. Should we just rank them and leave it there?
are we ranking them as like the Morlocks as a whole?
I think just put them on the order generally, but yeah. Did anyone have any more thoughts about the Morlocks? I feel like we haven't said much. I feel like I've said a lot, but did you have any more thoughts on the Morlocks?
I feel like they're a bit of a, like we said earlier, just a bit of a wasted bunch of characters, because it feels like they introduced them. They, like you said, they mostly kidnap people and they don't really know what else to do with them after that. And it feels like they make Storm the leader, and then like, oh, I don't really know what she does now. She's the leader of them. What do we do with these people? If we take them out of the sewers, they're not really the Morlocks anymore.
Yeah. I think I'd like to see like a day in the life of the Morlocks and just see them like not kidnapping people and just.
This sounds like a sitcom idea. The Morlocks is definitely.
I'm going to chat GBT that later. A
Excellent.
sitcom based around the Morlocks.
At home with the Morlocks.
Yeah.
But also then quite early on, I think it's only like the third or fourth Morlock story, they just all get killed. So clearly they're just kind of used as cannon fodder really for this massacre. I don't know.
mean, the kidnapping thing is quite interesting because I think they do just seem to like a lot of kidnapping. But I think I was trying to look at where the comic was, and it was the 80s, and I think in America there was a spate of like there was a big concern about kidnapping because the Cold War was sort of ending, and they needed something else to be frightened of, and there was like the Lindbergh baby, back in the 20s, and that. There was a thing in the 80s where they started to kidnap the parents of children so they called it kidnapping, but it wasn't. It was the parents that were kind of being taken hostage, and then they were bribing the children to kind of there was lots of stories of that. Kidnapping was a big thing.
You had the
80s.
kind of satanic panic as well.
Yeah.
I think generally again growing up with this idea of alligators in the sewers, I think generally the idea that homeless people had a city underground.
Yeah.
Was just kind of generally believed.
Yeah. Demolition Man, sort of bunch of people living underground and coming up and snatching people. I mean, you mentioned Phantom of the Opera earlier. It's that kind of sort of thing. And Les Miserables as well is very kind of, sewers, very sewer focused.
When the Beauty and the Beast, the whole
Beauty and the Beast.
Pretty person.
Do you mean the series Beauty and the Beast? With Ron Perlman?
That as well.
That was set in an underground city in the sewers, I think, or community in the sewers.
Yeah.
Also, The Hunchback of Notre Dame was very like people.
That was written in the 1980s.
The Disney one?
No.
That was under the sewers. In the sewers, rebellion, people living because they were hideous, Quasimodo type stuff.
I think he's thrown a lot of ideas in. I like the look of some of them, Beautiful Dreamer, Ape, all that. I think he's thrown in, the exploitation and the way homeless people are treated. I think there's really interesting stories to be had. I think the idea of beauty and ugliness, I think the Dickensian artful dodgery stuff is fun. But it does just repeat that, and I'm not sure he comes to a particularly interesting moral conclusion about any of it. That I don't know. I now want to see a proper Morlock story where it's like almost like the Walking Dead stories, where they're just a band of people shoved together and people get killed. The characters don't necessarily last and all that kind of stuff. I'd like to see that. So yeah, are we all agreed? Good ideas, kind of like the characters, but
there's an interesting
doesn't quite live up to the promise.
There's an interesting thing about this like hierarchy of mutants as well. It's like the mutants are kind of looked down upon, but it's like the worst mutants are the ones that have got the worst powers, and then there are subgroups. There's a hierarchy within the battered down sector of society.
And that's kind of idea of pulling the ladder up a little bit. Quite literally, but just because they're the hideous ones, we don't want to be one of them. And then within that, they've got the drain dwellers, who are really
keeping up with the drain dwellers is also a reality show that we can be looking at.
Keeping up with the drain dwellers, that's great. There's definitely something in this. I hope someone does one time, but I don't think they ever will. The thing is, the Chris Claremont era was so fantastic, but is only good because of the time. I don't think if you wrote it like it's written now, it would feel too wordy. But then within the context of that, I think it all works. But I don't know. Okay, well, they're all dead anyway. They've been ripped to bits.
I have one final question.
Yes,
we've done this before about. I'm not a big comic guy. All of my stuff is like nerd adjacent, so I kind of picked up a lot of this stuff from
like football.
Well, no, I was thinking like in bits of like the films and like the more prominent bits of it. So Caliban I knew, but the others I wondered, have they ever appeared in any of those things?
Oh, well, Callisto does appear in X-Men 3, which is the one with Vinnie Jones as the Juggernaut, but you just wouldn't know it because they just spunk all those characters. They just all look like people in leather.
I like that you could link that to me for the one football reference that was absolutely possible.
That footballer you like.
Vincent Jones, I'm aware of him, yes.
The very aggressive man. God, he's terrifying man, isn't he?
Played for the Wimbledon Juggernauts.
Yeah. Callisto appears then, and I think they're in the animated series because I think Annalee is in it. Do you remember this bit that's always stuck in my head where Wolverine, they're doing the Morlocks thing, and this character goes, covered in scorpions. Then Wolverine's like, oh my God, I'm covered in scorpions. And he thinks he's covered in scorpions, which isn't Annalee's power. She apparently just makes people miserable. But I think that's Annalee.
Yeah, it looks like her.
Yeah, so she did pop up. Well done, Anna. I'm so sad for Annalee. All her children died, so she stole some more. And then they didn't want to live with her because that would be weird. So here we go. Where do they go in the list? Let's just do it. I guess. Out of the four, how do they run? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Callisto at the top.
Callisto at the top. Has it got to be Callisto?
Then Caliban.
Caliban.
I'm into
Masque,
Caliban.
then Annalee.
I think Annalee is pretty low.
She's pretty low. Is she above or below A-bomb?
I think she's below because I mean the amount of longevity, that these people have, she's on a different layer if she's already dead in a massacre.
I'm putting her on above Achilles though. Is that fair? No? Below Adam Destine?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Is she below Arrow? I feel there was a tragedy and a sadness to the character. I'm putting her between Adam Destine and Arrow. Okay. We've literally I've got to go in 1 minute. Here we go. So Callisto, where should we go with Callisto? Below Gambit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Should I put a between Gambit and Werewolf by Night?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she's above Werewolf by Night. He's just a werewolf.
He is just a werewolf. And his name is Jack Russell. His real name. That's the only thing going from him. And he's very hip. I like his hip. Finally, Caliban. Where does he go? Below Callisto, above Werewolf by Night? Shall we just put them all? Masque is probably below Werewolf by Night, I reckon. Below Absorbing Man?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm standing very hard for Absorbing Man every time.
Below Abomination?
Yeah, just
above Angela. You can't go above Angela, can? Yeah, above Angela.
Yeah,
we didn't like Angela, did we? We don't like women. Sorry, we do like women. Okay, great. They're in there. They're in the list. There's now 42 characters in that list. Woohoo! And the Morlocks as a group, would we put above AIM?
Again,
No.
big fan of AIM.
Big fan of AIM, but above
like
Alpha
AIM.
Flight. Do they go? Is Alpha Flight still at the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay, Alpha Flight getting no love here.
I don't like Alpha Flight, to be honest.
No one likes Alpha Flight. Wonderful. All right, thanks everyone for listening. Or thanks anyone for listening. Thanks to Eyes on Leg for the music. Thank you, Jamie and Nick, for joining me once again to discuss the Morlocks. Next week, I have devised a very special Xmas episode, and I've got a little Xmas present for whoever's joining me. I'm not sure which of you. Hopefully Dan will be there too. Please follow us please like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. And please, you can support our work at patreon.com/abombtozzzax. Thank you so much for listening, and beware the sewers, my pretty pretties. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to abombtozzzax, my favorite Marvel character, with me, Colin Holt, and my friends Dan Snellgrove and Jamie Firth. There they go! Please remember to support us at patreon.com/abombtozzzax.